I believe that what's wrong in not just the industry, but the world is that people just aren't speaking their authentic message. People are, whether it's business, there's so many copycat and like they're just trying to like make a quick buck, but they're not really doing what they're passionate on.
I mean, that could be the biggest mistake, number one.
Mm-hmm. And not just that, but I believe, and this is what I believe God's put me on this earth for, is to help people speak that message out to the world. I believe that, like, I call it the inner light. I feel like I've had like a true inner awakening. When more coaches, entrepreneurs, just people in general can speak up and speak that message up to the world and help wake people up to their God-given talents, that's the only way we're going to combat all of like the negativity, the fear, the scarcity. Everything is pumped out on the media right now.
Yeah.
And that, like, that's our like inner, like the internal why of what we do.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 Strength and Health Authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode.
Hey, what's up? You are listening to another episode of the Strong by Design podcast. I am your host, Mike Westerdal. Today, I'm really happy to be with a friend of mine, a consultant for Critical Bench. He's the in-demand coach, and his name is Jason Meland, which I've been saying incorrectly, and we've got that straightened out. He empowers online coaches to monetize their message and have more impact. He also has a podcast called The School of Impact. And in the past 8 years, Jason has built multiple six-figure businesses. In fact, he's built 3 of them in the last 8 years in the fitness and coaching space. And most importantly, he's a husband and father of 2 amazing children. So thanks a lot for being here today. Appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I look forward to this conversation.
All right. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, there's a lot of things that we can talk about. Which direction do you want to lead this in?
Well, let's start off how we hooked up and how we met. Our YouTube channel is just recently hit 1 million subs, as you know, and we found Jason, and I think we had dinner together once. Vince Dolmani was in town, and where was it? At the Opal Sands, I believe. We had dinner. I think we were sitting next to each other. We chit-chatted a little, but not too much, excuse me. And then I have started following you on Instagram, and you were doing a lot of live videos and helping people kind of connect with their audience and how to be more relevant, have more impact, and ultimately sell more and help more people online with video. And with YouTube, we've been delivering awesome content for 10 years here, doing a video a day for, I think we had like a 7-year stretch of a video a day, but really wasn't a thing that was making a lot of money for the business. It was more something we were just doing to help people. So I was like, all right, we've kind of given a lot here. We've done a lot to help people. How can we also help people with our products and services and get them to learn more about it? So we called you in for a workshop, got blown away by that information, and I wound up hiring you for some coaching over the last 2 months to work with our trainers, coaches, our video team, and that's kind of how we got to know each other, starting things off. But why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about your background? How did you get into fitness?
Yeah, 100%. And, I feel like the big direction here is, and that we'll kind of lead into, is really how to help create more impact in this world. This is where everything kind of started. And each one of us have an opportunity, whether we're in business and we want to be able to, increase our income and increase the amount of people that we're helping, or whether we're just really trying to figure out how, what our purpose is on this planet and what God's put us here to do. That's what we can uncover here in the next, 30, 40 minutes or so. But to just kind of kick off with, I got into a little trouble when I was 17, and that, I believe, was by design, and that sent me on this journey to wanting to really clean up my act. And I moved from South Florida, where I was at the time, up to North Florida in the Panama City area, and I decided to become a firefighter. And I actually worked as a firefighter for about 7.5 years. My goal was to get vested in the Florida State retirement system.
Nice.
And make a decision. Do I want to stay in for 20 or do I want to get out? And well, I believe God answered that for me. And it was through an electrocution accident, which, long story short, this is the thing that like got me into fitness and that really, I believe, changed my life and set me on this path. And I remember it like it was yesterday, and we were responding to, a routine house fire, and we were on the way. The dispatch said, hey, there's smoke coming out, there's flames coming out, and we just had reports of 2 brothers being trapped inside this house. And so I'm at the time like a young firefighter, in my young 20s, and I'm like, oh, search and rescue. And so we all get packed up, we get on scene. My partner and I go to make entry into the house. Our crew went to go turn off the electricity. Well, so we thought everything was good, right? Well, we're crawling beneath the smoke line. I'm on the hose line. My partner's helping to bring the hose back. We're spraying hot spots. We're trying to search rooms at the same time for these 2 brothers. And lo and behold, I went to find the doorway, and my hand hit a dryer. Well, turns out the electricity wasn't turned off in the right spot because they were stealing electricity from their neighbor's house.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't in the best part of town, right? And a 220 volt electrical current went through my body, out my back. It actually went through and hit my partner. And I was immediately pulled out of the house. If you've ever seen the movie with Jason Statham, it's an old movie called Crank.
Yeah.
Like where my heart rate was above, I think like 2. It was almost like, it was bad. It was, I can't remember. It was like 220, 230, something insane. They had to throw me in the back of the ambulance. I was in this complete daze, had no idea what was going on. They immediately started pumping me with fluids, rushed me to the hospital, and this is like a pivotal moment. So I ended up being in the hospital for 3 days, and I was released on the 3rd night.
So you don't remember like that moment really? You're like in a daze in the ambulance.
Yeah, I don't. I remember this initial shock. Everything after that was it's a blur.
Wow.
I barely remember the ambulance ride. But I do remember is being pumped with fluids. They had to like regenerate my liver and kidneys. I was in my 20s. It shriveled up so much. They said it looked like a 90-year-old man's.
Oh my gosh.
And what ended up happening, and this was a moment that truly changed everything for me. There was this doctor, white hair, looking down on me. And I was just lying in the hospital bed, and he said, son, at the time, mind you, I was 53 pounds overweight. I wasn't really taking care of myself. And he said, son, you are way too young to be this out of shape. If you keep going, the electrocution accident is the least of your worries. You're gonna end up dying.
Wow. This is like the beginning of every scary video sales letter. It's like you're at the operating table. Doctor tells you you're going to die if you don't get all the things. So you didn't have a background like really in fitness, but you had to have somewhat to get into firefighting, right? Like be able to carry a certain amount of weights. And did the guys work out? I know they eat a lot too. It's a lot of downtime and cooking.
They do now. Right. Like, but at the time, not really. Most of my station, we were all, overweight, out of shape. And I recently went back there. It's been over a decade since I've been gone. And I went back there, and they're pretty fit these days. But yeah. And so I took that to heart. I was like, man, he's right. And it was like a wake up call. And I was like, this is a second chance. I believe God's given me a second chance. And so, as soon as I got through recovery, I wasn't allowed to do stuff for a little bit. As soon as I got out of recovery, I started to just go work out. I didn't know what I was doing, but I started to work out. I started to go in the back of our fire station, and I would just do body weight movements. Eventually, we were able to get some equipment into our fire station. I would run around the parking lot. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing back then, right? So I was eating like cans of tuna and, like really trying to do it. Well, I ended up losing a lot of weight. I lost more than 55 pounds, probably a little underweight. But I felt really good. And at the time I was helping my shift mates get in shape too. I was helping them lose weight. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was just like,
there's a lesson right there. Even when you don't know what you're doing, start moving and doing something, whether it's fitness or life or anything. Just waiting to have it all figured out perfect is not going to get you anywhere. Start going, start doing, figure it out as you go.
Yeah, 100%. I just looked up some YouTube videos. I wish I saw Critical Bench at the beginning back then. But I was just doing stuff that I found, and I ended up really enjoying the process of helping other people get in shape. I thought that was really cool where, I helped one of my shift mates lose he lost a lot. I think 60 pounds. And
wow.
I was like, this is what I want to do. And I wasn't really sure how, but I had this entrepreneurial, desire kick up.
Did you always have that, or did it start right then?
I always had it. I just didn't know. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. My grandfather, my late grandfather owned some big hotels out on, Miami Beach. My dad owned a company. He still owns a company now. So I've come from a long line of entrepreneurs. So I think I always had it. I just wasn't really sure how to channel it.
Sure. And this kind of helped you figure out what your passion is.
It helped me figure out what my passion was.
Because how are you going to do a business not doing something that you really feel strongly about and that you love?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm excited to get into that in a sec. Because I think there is a lot that can be said for people that are starting businesses now. But before we get into that, something that I feel like would be super valuable in this whole story for everybody is I was at this pivotal point, and I know a lot of people probably had to experience this during COVID. This was obviously way before COVID. This was back in 2011. No, this happened in 2009, the electrocution. I waited 2 years to get vested in the retirement system because just the advice I got, somebody's like, you should do it. And I was like, all right. But I knew I wanted to leave, so I waited 2 years, and I really started to study and learn up more on fitness and nutrition. And the time came when I was like, this is a pivotal moment. Do I leave the fire station I'm now vested in? Do I stay and do 20 years, or do I leave and follow my passion? I had this strong urge, and I do believe that it was God telling me this. There's nothing it's unexplainable, and I'm sure everybody listening has had this come up in their life in some way. And I was like, I have to follow this path. And everybody thought I was stupid. My family, everybody's like, are you kidding me? You're leaving a career in the fire station? And I was like, I have to. And so it was almost like I went backwards. And so I know everybody faces these decisions, whether it's leaving a job to pursue a passion or anything, right? There's all these decisions that come up, and there's fear. What if this doesn't work out? What if I look stupid? What if I'm embarrassed? What if I do this and everybody's like, I told you so?
Sure. For me, the fear is more of not knowing and not trying. That will haunt me. Mm-hmm. Trying it and it doesn't. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? It doesn't work out, and you got to go get a job again. You're just kind of back where you were anyway. At least you can kind of check that off that you tried.
Yeah.
For me, living and never giving it a shot, that would be harder to live with than trying it and failing.
100%. And I really feel like that's great advice. And I didn't know that at the time. I wasn't consciously I was just like, I gotta do this.
Now you went all in though? Just quit and now I'm doing this.
Kind of. So I was super scared to go talk to my chief. I was like, so I was sweating. I was nervous. I was like, okay, I knocked on his door. Chief, I want to put my 2 weeks notice in. What? He was like, I know you're going to be the one driving around in Maseratis one day. I always knew. So I was like, I got to go do this. And so, yeah, I left. I had a Camaro at the time, a nice red Camaro. I sold everything, and I left. I moved back down to South Florida. I worked some odd jobs and stuff just to kind of make some money to be able to
get things going.
Yeah. Because I wasn't saving. I was spending money on Camaros and apartments.
But that first business, just because whether it does good or not, there's more. It doesn't have to. The story doesn't have to end just because of some failures.
Correct.
What happened in that first business was a boot camp, wasn't it? After you started training some people. Yeah.
So I actually got a job at LA Fitness, and working in the big box gyms, and I quickly became known. I had this knack. I feel like this was a gift, and people loved to train with me. They loved the coach with me. So I quickly built up an audience, and then I realized that big box gyms don't pay you well, and so I started to train my own clientele, and I started to really it became noticed, and it was looked down upon, but I was crushing it. I was doing at that time, which to me at that time was big money. I was doing 5-6K a month. I was in my young 20s, didn't have responsibilities. I was like, whoa, this is cool. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to open up my own business. And we did. we opened up between my brother and I, actually. He is no longer doing this, but he was a massage therapist before he joined the Air Force. And we opened up a business called Body Therapeutics, which is still in existence today. And at the time, we were doing training. Like, we would bring people to local parks. I'd give them a boot camp workout, and then he would give them a massage. We were like, this is the best idea in the world. And people loved it. We would go to people's houses and do it. And he ended up going to the Air Force, so we got rid of the massage part, and it just turned into a boot camp style business. And another little pivotal moment here, and I think this is a great... I shared this actually the other day on my social media. This is, I feel like, a really powerful lesson for people listening right now, where I grew my bootcamp business through Groupon, right? And through, referrals back then to about 50 people. It became noticed by the city I was in. Okay. They're like, okay, yeah, this is out of hand.
I've heard this before. It's like, it's okay, like here and there with some friends, but once it becomes like a business and it's a lot of people,
there's like cars,
then
like,
all of a sudden you gotta have permits and licenses,
which was cool, and I was all cool for it, right? But here's the thing: they came to me and they were like, "Hey, we want to do a 70-30 split with you, and you can do this."
The fields or the town?
The city.
Okay.
And I was like, "You want to take 30% of my profits?" And they were like, "Yep." I'm like, "No. There's no way you're going to do that for just giving me I'm like, I'm down to give you guys something. But I was like, I don't know with the vision I have, if I can give you guys 30% of my profits forever, right? Is I'm going to have to hire a team. And I'm like, that's a lot. And they were like, that's just the way we do things. I'm like,
is there a way to rent like a park or a field?
That's what I said. And they were like, well, and they were just like, and so they pretty much kicked me out. And I was just like, at that time, I was like, I guess this is it. Then I'm like, you know what? No. I'm doing this. I have an audience of 50 people that are paying me. I'm not going to let them down. I'm not refunding. I'm going. And then I used to play hockey, right? And there was an old roller hockey rink that I knew of. And so I went back there. There were sinkholes in it. And one of the hockey fields, a soccer company actually leased from the city. And they turned the hockey rink into a soccer field. And there was 2 other rinks that weren't touched yet. So I was like, I approached a soccer company. I was like, hey guys, how about I pay you a little bit of money and you let me
action.
Yeah, you let me get this, and they were like, okay, of course, right? So
it's a good way to do it.
Yep. And so I started to train people out there. This hockey rink had a freaking sinkhole in it, so we had to like cordon it off. We were training people in it. And we ended up growing to like about 80 members at that time, 80 people. The city figured it out, and they were like, came back in, and they brought police, and they were like, you got to get off this property. And I was like, no, I'm subleasing. They're like, that's illegal. You can't do that. Well, they told me no, and they broke it all off again. And again, my thought was like, oh, I gave it a good run.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what? Like, I felt an urge, and like today with like, I really diving into faith, I've learned this isn't just an urge, that this was like a calling. And so I was like, I'm not quitting. I was like, I'm going to go, if they're telling me no, I'm going to go talk to the mayor. And so I ended up going to the mayor. I got in touch with the mayor. I joined the Chamber of Commerce, and I was like, I made myself a staple in the community. I was like, I am going to be a staple here. They're not telling me to leave. And the mayor, I ended up befriending the mayor.
You're not selling drugs. You're trying to get people in shape.
That was my thought, right? And so I ended up going to the Chamber of Commerce, and I immediately applied to be like, not immediately, but I joined like referral groups, like BNI type groups. And I ended up really becoming known over the course of a year. Mind you, I didn't take no for an answer. I was still doing it. And it was this big feud between myself and the city and the YMCA.
Oh my gosh.
Because the YMCA was in that same plaza, in that same kind of park. And they were like, this dude's taking our market share. Like, these people see this boot camp and they're all leaving the YMCA. And which was an aquatic center. It wasn't even a full YMCA. So I don't know what they were complaining about, but it's not like they had a big gym. But anyway, so I befriended the mayor and the Chamber of Commerce, and I decided that I was going to throw a ribbon cutting. And so I threw the ribbon cutting. The mayor came, the whole shebang.
This is for the place next to the YMCA, or where are you now?
In the same hockey rink.
Okay.
We fixed the sinkhole by the time in that year process. We had the soccer company fix the sinkhole. But we had the ribbon cutting, and we had city officials come out. They could not say anything because the mayor was there, right? And so like they officially cut it, and then the city, the Parks and Recs guys came and they were like, listen, this after a year, cops being called, a big feud. They were like, we're gonna turn our cheek. They're like, they're like, we don't know how you did this.
You went over their heads is what you did.
And so the big message and takeaway here is,
I was going to say, what are the take? I would say one I'm seeing here is just persistency and determination and grit and just keeping with something and not quitting. Because if you think starting a business or really anything worthwhile in life is just going to be a simple trick or some easy thing you can do, that's what we're all kind of told in life, but that's not how it works. You got to keep at it, and you got to go through the failures and the setbacks after setbacks, and that's what you did. And then what's your takeaway?
Not taking no for an answer on something that you're passionate about. Rules are meant to be rewritten sometimes. Sometimes they have rules in place because they don't know how, right? So they wanted to classify me as a boot camp. And I was like, I'm not. I'm an outdoor fitness center. They're like, you're running a boot camp. I'm like, you don't know the vision. This is what this is. We're going to help people here. I'm going to help thousands of people in this city. Like, how are you saying? And like, I wasn't taking no for an answer. And so if you have a dream right now, if you have a passion, if you have something, it doesn't matter what it is, if you have something that you want to accomplish and you're letting somebody else tell you no, you're letting somebody else dictate your results or your behaviors, your actions, your thoughts. If you're letting another human being, it doesn't matter if it's a rule. I've learned now that rules can be broken. You know, it's not like, the rule is don't deal drugs. Okay, you probably shouldn't deal drugs, maybe, right? But like, when you have a good intention, when you have good, like a purpose, think about that sometimes. Like, is there a way? Like, can you?
You know what I'm curious about? How, like, were you on an island there, or was you and your brother? Like, what other influencers are coming in? Because you've got maybe family and other friends that think you're probably being irresponsible or crazy or causing trouble that doesn't need to be started, but you had that kind of passion. You felt like it was a calling. Like, obviously you had God on your side telling you to do that. That's stronger than anything. But what about the external kind of influences and people, where today you and I both know we got to surround ourselves with other people. We got to be careful who we share our dreams with. You go and share your dreams with wrong people, family members or certain friends. They don't need to know everything. Careful who you share things with, because a lot of people are going to shoot you down. Did you have anybody in your life at that time that was like on board and supporting you and kind of thinking big like you were?
100%. My wife.
Awesome.
Wasn't my wife at the time, but she, everybody thought I was crazy. Maybe she did too, but she didn't say it and she didn't show it. She was just like, you know what, you got this. Like, you can do this, you know? And I think having that was super helpful, because I'm very stubborn, and I was like, I'm not giving up. But
could you imagine having the opposite problem, where your spouse or wife or partner or whatever, like, is against what you're trying to do and thinks it's bad? And like, I could not imagine being able to, like, I guess, blossom or grow or do what I need to do, having someone at home or in life that's like, doesn't think you should do it.
And I feel like that is a big common problem. You know, I've helped now hundreds and hundreds of coaches, and I see that a lot of times. And it's like, what are you willing to tolerate? You know, for me, I'll block, and this is maybe a blessing and a curse. I think it's hurt relationships, but I don't think I know it's hurt relationships. But for me, I will just block anybody out, and not because it's not even a negative thing. It's nothing against anybody. But if somebody's not in alignment or congruency with my vision, they're being blocked out. And it's nothing against the person. It's just how my brain operates. And I've been like this for a very long time.
But what does blocked out mean? Because blocked out doesn't mean they're cut out. You don't ever speak to them again. It might just mean maybe they're not part of this, or you're not sharing that with them. It doesn't mean like,
I'm going to limit my exposure.
Sure. And I think that's tricky for people. I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast on this, but like, what kind of access you give people.
Yeah. To me, I don't think too much about it. It's just very limited. You know, I'm one track. It's like, this is the destination we're going, which thank God, because that business is still in existence. You know, we were able to like put nice, beautiful turf in there. We built a ninja gym on the side, and, you know, it's became South Florida's to this day. It's only outdoor fitness center, not a boot camp, but an actual fitness center. We built machines out there. We actually got to a point where an investor came in and helped invest a franchise.
There's no covering on it. It's fully outdoor.
Fully outdoor. So the rain, obviously is a hindrance, but people still come as long as it's not like lightning.
It doesn't get rusted up and stuff in the rain.
Nope.
Well, Ninja Warrior's a lot of it's outside. I mean, there's indoor facilities like
you just got to take care for the equipment. There was like a shed out there. Like we got one of those big storage containers, and it's went on. I mean, we tried to franchise it. That's a whole nother story where we failed miserably, unfortunately. But that was a good lesson. Like Bedros's Fit Body Boot Camp and like a lot of these big 9 rounds and they crushed us. Like we had the best, and I could have made it work, but we got crushed early on, and I was just like, which kind of leads me to where we're going, right? I was crushed during the franchise, crushed. Like it put me negative 45K in debt. Loans, credit cards, like I was doing everything to make this work, and my stubbornness of not taking no for an answer, at this point it turned into a blessing, but it wasn't good. And I don't know if anybody's experienced something like this where you're just like, ooh, when it rains it pours. And
I feel like things come in threes sometimes also. It's like, I'm not superstitious at all, but it just seems to be like as soon as 1 or 2 things happen, there's like another 1 or 2 coming before you get through it.
Yeah. Well, this would have been the third. I didn't bring something up earlier, but I don't know if it's necessary. Maybe it is. I can add this in, and we'll dive into some maybe strategic or tactical things too. So this was right when I started my business. I kind of left this part out, but I feel like it might help feed and kind of give some value in terms of like not giving up, where my firefighter buddies came down. It's been a few years at this point since I seen them. I just started my business, right? We were already at that park, where we started the center, and we were out for some beers.
I feel like something bad. You're going to tell me something bad.
Nah. Well, after just a few beers, I drove home completely fine, right? We've all had a couple beers. Well, I was pulling into my parking lot, and there was a cop sitting on my street. Pulled in. It was in my driveway. Turned those lights on. Got me out of the car in my driveway, and I was drinking. Right, I had been drinking. Long story short, DUI. Major setback. I couldn't drive. At the time, I didn't have a storage container. All of my equipment was in my truck still. So I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make this work. Not only was it a very expensive lesson, but I didn't know how I was going to make it work. So I ended up having to ride my bicycle with a duffel bag. I couldn't take all my equipment. I just literally couldn't. A duffel bag on my back. I had backpacks and I had all these things. And I was riding my bike to this park about 1.5 miles. And people thought it was insane.
It's not funny, but what else are you going to do at this point?
I couldn't. And I ended up having to leave some equipment at this park. I had to hide it because they didn't have a storage container at that time.
Hide some dumbbells under some leaves by the tree.
Yeah, we had to put it out in the back and cover it up so people didn't But yeah, it was rough. And so we'll kind of end this portion off with just the concept here is if you have a passion, if you have a dream, if you have something that you want to pursue, life will throw you obstacles. And, I heard this saying, and this could be for if you're off path, where first God will throw a pebble, then he'll throw a rock, and then he'll throw a boulder to make sure he wakes you up. And I was definitely getting the boulders. I'm sure everybody here has got boulders before. And sometimes you just have to kind of wake up to what that is.
And it's stop learning the same lessons over and over. Mm-hmm. And these obstacles are hard to know why or what the timing is on it. But now, fast forward, you can look back and look at those things as almost blessings or corrections, things that were helpful for you to where you are now. Maybe you wouldn't have got here without going through some of those hardships.
100%, and I think a lot of people, they hold on to hardships, whether it's from their childhood or from, teenage years in high school or from business lessons, and they let that define them, right? When instead, for example, when looping back around to close the loop on the negative 45K in debt thing, I remember this. I was running Facebook ads, and we pretty much grew our business through networking and ads, right? And the ads stopped working as much. I was out of the business. I didn't have the right systems in place to franchise. I thought but the systems just weren't there. I didn't know what I didn't know back then, right? And so I was sitting in my gym parking lot, in the outdoor fitness center parking lot. I was in my my blue Silverado, which I still have. This was 2017. The daughter was just born. I was gripping my steering wheel, and I couldn't pay myself. I literally I couldn't pay myself for months at this point, as I was taking out so much debt.
This was your first child?
Yeah. And I remember my wife being like, I'm here to help, but like we're racking up our own personal debt too. Business taking on debt, we're racking up debt. And I was just like, I don't want to be this kind of father. Yeah. And so I remember looking in the rearview mirror, and I was crying. I was saying some rather profound, words. I was angry at myself, and I was just like, you know what? I can't go on like this. And I didn't know what to do. And so the theme here is like, okay, I can be a victim. Facebook ads aren't working. I'm sure I can figure it out, but what can I do right now? And so I was like, well, I'm in the Chamber of Commerce. There's plenty of speaking opportunities. Let me go try to speak. And so I did. And the first speaking gig I got was to a bunch of children about vegetables. And everybody was telling me no, but they told me yes. It was a nutrition store.
Nice.
And so I did a speaking event and I was like, all right, how can I turn this into some sales? And so
it's like, how much is your allowance?
Yeah.
Like,
well, the parents were there.
You only got $3? All right. Well, I'll cut you a deal.
The parents were there and shoppers.
Right.
And so I ended up pitching to the parents. I was like, hey, we got these. I had just started because I was trying to pivot out of this mess I was in. So we had started like a hybrid online program to our gym. It was called our FLAG group, Fat Loss Accountability.
2017, you're saying? Mm-hmm. And thank God you did this before when
COVID.
Everyone else did it in COVID.
Yeah.
In 2020, everyone's like, oh no one's coming to the boot camp or the gym anymore. I got to go online. And it forced everybody online. You were 3 years ahead of the curve there.
Yeah. Well, we weren't really had system, but I had something, right?
Right. At least you got started there.
And so when I was speaking, I recognized that like I signed up one parent. One parent said, hey, I'm going to come to your gym. She signed up. And then I was like, well, that's a sign of life. And so I was like, how can I do this more? So I reached out to the Chamber of Commerce and I was like, hey, and they ended up giving me a speaking gig. This time it was in front of 100 people, or maybe 150 at a Chamber of Commerce breakfast. Everybody was mesmerized. I thought it was terrible. Everybody was like, all phones were down.
Taking notes.
Yeah. And I was just like, in my mind, I was like, I'm terrible. I was like, this is bad. But everybody like loved it. And like, I had all these people come out in my fitness center, and then I started doing other gigs.
Do you think you're a natural speaker or?
I don't. I actually didn't speak according to my mom until I was like 5. I didn't really speak. I was shy, introverted my entire life. But I do believe that this is a gift that God gave me. And I believe that like the reason I didn't speak for so long is because I believe you're presented with the polarity of your gift at times where you kind of like experience the polar opposite. And how naturally this came to me. Like, if you look back at some of my speaking, you may be like, oh my God, if I look back, I may be like, but people seem to like it. And I was just like, I don't know why, but I'm going to keep doing it. And I recognized at the time, Facebook had recently made live video a function. They first opened it up because they were trying, you know how Facebook, Mark, if you're listening to this, shout out to you, but Facebook's always taking, or Metaverse, right? They're always taking what everybody else is doing, and they stole from Periscope. They were like, hey, Periscope is doing these live. And so at least that's what I think. So I started seeing like The Rock. I started seeing all these celebrities doing lives in 2016 and 2017. At some point around there, they made it available for anybody to do. And so I was like, I'm going to start going live. I can speak at any time. And I did. And I was so terrible. I had scripts of like Microsoft Word documents that I printed. They were waving in the wind. I was just like, I was running up hills and stuff. And like, I was so terrible. I still have some of these videos and it was bad.
Hey, well, you had to do it to get better.
Correct. And there's a quote that I love. And it's in order to be great, you first have to be good. In order to be good, you first have to be bad. In order to be bad, you first have to try, right? And a lot of people just don't try,
right?
Because they're afraid of being bad.
Right, the fear of failure and being bad and humiliation. There's a lot of things to be afraid of there, but
there is, and we can dive into that because I have some.
But if you are afraid,
really...
listen to the last episode we did called "Fear Not."
Yeah. Yeah, and I have some tactical things too for anybody that does want to do some live speaking on live camera, and you're like, dude, I don't know, I don't know if I can do that.
It's encouraging though, because when you see people on stage really delivering a great message and they're engaging and authentic, and you're like, wow, I wish I could do that, or that's just not me. Like you think somehow they just stepped up there unprepared, and naturally that's how it comes out. It's like same thing with comedy routines and stuff. These guys practiced at like small little clubs before they got to the big stage. You know, they have this routine down pat that they've been practicing, and it's developed just like any skill, any sport, anything in business. I mean, you might have a passion for it, but it's going to take time and work to develop those skills.
100%. Yeah. And that's like with anything. It doesn't matter if it's like, you're trying to get fit, right? And you just need to really put the repetitions in and learn the habits and develop the character traits to keep fit. It's the same thing with business. It's like there's skills that you have to learn, you know? And this is what I kind of learned is with speaking, it's nothing more than really doing sales copy, right? It's like you're just doing sales copy, but you're speaking it versus writing it. And, you know, a light bulb went off in my head with the live videos, and I was just like, man, people seem to be reaching out to me. And I'm like, how'd you hear about me? How'd you hear about us? We watch your lives. Huh. So I went all in, 340 lives in the next year, and people started to take notice. I started getting offers to be on live television. I ended up getting booked on live television shows. This gave me the confidence and really the competence, the unconscious competence to go out for national platforms like American Ninja Warrior, which...
Yeah, I was going to ask you when that fit in the timeline.
This was in, so I started going out for it in 2000, around that same time, end of 2017,
but
2018.
You've been obviously training for it for years as part of the...
2016, I think, is when I really started training, but I was a little bit too, I was like, I'm not going to apply for the show, because how you apply for the show, for those that don't know, is you submit a 3-minute video. In the video, you have to demonstrate skills. You have to tell a story and show them that you have. It's TV, right?
So you got to sell on video, which is what you're like.
You got to sell on video,
anyway.
Right? And so the first time I went out for it, I used my electrocution accident, and they called me, right? And they have what's called a 200 top 200 list. And they'll trim that down to top 100 per region. There's like 6 regions total. And so there's 600 competitors total. And there's like thousands. This day and age, there's like tens of thousands of people that apply.
I mean, they're looking for people that are marketable too, not just the best athletes. So who's got a good story, who's good on camera and got energy, who's going to like get the people to watch.
Yep, 100%. And so I was whittled down from tens of thousands to the top 200. And I was so psyched, man. I was like, I'm in my first year doing it. I'm like, look at this. And they ended up calling me back and they cut me. And they were like, there was another guy that got electrocuted, but he died. And you didn't physically die. You were just kind of like unconscious.
Like he came back to life or something?
Yeah. And they were like, his story's better. So he died more. It's like, so we're going to use him. And I was like, oh.
He got electrocuted more than you, so...
And so, long story short, they changed this up a bit now, but back in 2007, this was in 2018 or 9. It's 2018. 2018, yeah. They had a walk-on line. Well, this is down in Miami. You have to wait in the walk-on line. You don't have to stay there the whole time, but you have to show up to the walk-on line for basically 9 to 5. I had to wait there for 28 days.
Oh my gosh.
28 days. I had to do my business out of that walk-on line. Luckily I had trainers at my gym still. I had to run my operate. I was doing everything in the parking lot there. 28 days. I was number 13 in the walk-on line. They usually run the top 20 competitors. So I was like, I'm in, right? I'm in. Day of the show, I got on. I got on. They were like, you're in. Got my competitor number. At the time, I think they changed it up now. Post-COVID, but they run overnight, right? 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. is when they get people there. They start the running when it gets dark, as they were doing it all outdoors, and they ended at 4 a.m. Well, it was around 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m. I was called into the warm-up area. I was like, oh my God, this is my chance. I see the big bright lights and I'm like, this is it. Dream come true. This little backstory here. I wanted to do this since they started. This was like a dream of mine for about a decade.
Wow.
I just had recently started going out for it. It took me 6 years to build up the confidence to even do ninja. So I was like, I'm not a ninja. I'm a bodybuilder. I'm a sprinter now. Like this is like, but anyways, see the lights. I'm like, this is my shot. I'm in the warm up area. Well, a really bad thunderstorm came through Miami that night. It was in Bayfront down in Miami. And they had to shut down production. And they had enough, at the time, they had enough footage that it's Hollywood, right? It's like money for them to set this stuff up. They closed it all down. And I lost my chance. And I was just devastated. I mean, I'm a grown man, but I'm not afraid to admit, like, I was crying. Like, this was like a really important dream. And I was just devastated. I was just like, are you kidding me? And I almost wanted to give up on ninja. I was like, are you serious? And I was just like, all right. And so after I got over it, I was just like, I'm obviously emotionally attaching to this a little bit too much for it to impact me this much. I recognize that about myself. I was like, that's a little bit too much. The next year came around, 2019. I applied for the show. Same thing. I got cut. Got a call. Got cut. I'd actually called the producer and I was like, hey man, can you give me, I didn't call him, I emailed him and he set up a phone call with me. And I was like, how can I?
Well, there's a lesson right there about being proactive. Like you went back and talked to the mayor when you needed to. You're emailing the producer. It's like people do not usually take any extra steps and they just assume it's not going to work. They get tons of these. Everyone's bothering them. Nobody's doing this stuff. It's like you email the producer. You might have been like one of the only guys that like asked for feedback or wanted to like get some help. Same thing happens in business. People that want to work with you. It's like you can give your phone number out at a speaking event and like no one in the crowd will call because they think like you'll never talk to them or everyone else is calling, so I have no chance.
Yep.
It's like doing these little things matter.
100%. Yeah, but he emailed me. He's like, send me your video, and he reviewed it. And this is actually where I really learned about hooks. And he said for him, it was like first 10 seconds matter. Captivate. He's like, if you have to jump out there like naked, like captivate them. So they're like, we got to watch this video. And it's the same thing if you're doing videos for your business, whether it's live videos or pre-recorded videos, YouTube videos, right? It's like the hook matters because that's what gets attention. And this day and age, this is
like the pattern interrupt first, right?
Pattern interrupt first.
So something just you're not expecting. I'm like sitting on the couch with the kids and we watch Ninja Warrior sometimes and they're kind of doing something else. They might have a game or they might be like playing with the dog, but the TV's on and it's like someone gets introduced. Maybe they look, maybe they don't. But if a guy jumps out doing something crazy, like everyone stops and stares at him, now you got the attention and then you're about to say quickly, you've got to have some kind of hook or story or something quickly, right?
100%. And you look at like the old like newspaper ads they used to run where it's like sex and then they're like now to talk about insurance and it's like you don't want to do anything like that, right?
No, not the bait and switch.
Yeah, but like the legitimate hooks,
clickbait.
Yeah. But yeah, that was valuable for my business because I was like, I can apply that same advice to my business.
Did you get any good exposure from being on the show?
I did, and I can explain how to use your story too. What ended up happening with this is I didn't get a call back that year, but they were in Atlanta because they changed the regions, they changed the locations, and I was like, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to go to the walk-on line. This time they changed the walk-up line or walk-on line to a lottery system, so you didn't have to wait in line because it was destroying ninjas and people were complaining like you can't wait for a month. And it's like, and so they decided that they were going to do a lottery that you just show up, hundreds and hundreds of ninjas will come to the location. You get a lottery ticket. They're going to pick the top 20, right? They're just going to pull numbers. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. There's no freaking way. Like, and my wife was like, do it. She was like, this is your dream. She was like, do it. So, happy wife, happy life. Listen, right? And so I did it. I got a one-way plane ticket to Atlanta. Flew out to Atlanta. They were doing it at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I got there the day before. They did the lottery. And I was chosen. I was picked. I was number 11. And the night, they were still doing overnight filming. This is 2019 now. And we were waiting in line. It was 20 degrees in Atlanta. I'm a Florida boy, so I am freaking cold.
It's still just Atlanta.
I'm just like,
you're not going to Minnesota or
I'm
something.
just like shivering out there. It's like, and it's all night. We got there at 4 p.m. They usually cut filming at 4 a.m. It was 3:58 a.m. I was already expecting another devastation. I was like, it's 3:58. I've been here all night, freezing. And I hear them say, we have one more runner that we're going to do tonight. And I was just like, I see people out in line, and I'm just like, that's it. And then all of a sudden, I hear the producer say, Jason Meland. And I was just like, what? Instantly, my body just like forgot about the cold. And it was just like, you're up. And I was just like, oh. And so I went up there, and like, I was just like, hey, I was just in shock. I was just like, this is happening. And so I ended up getting on stage, and I held up my ticket, number 11, and I look at the audience, and I said, never give up on your dreams. And everybody just went crazy. And they're like, you can see like Akbar coming back there. Like they went crazy. And I ended up running the course. And I fell earlier than I should with all the training that I have. But,
it seems like that always happens. It's like the best story and the guy you want to win the most. And you're like, oh, I love this guy. That's such a good story. And then the first thing they fall in and you're like, come on, I know like you're really good.
But I made it past the first obstacle. But yeah, I fell in. But it's whatever. I was like, you know what? I wasn't even that devastated. I was a little bit, but then I was like, you know what? I made it.
You were on it.
I made it. And I was just like this surreal moment of like kind of full circle of like the theme, just never give up on your dreams. Don't take no for an answer. And this is the theme throughout this, right? It's like everybody that says no, the lessons that I've learned and that I'm hoping to pass on today is that just because it's a no doesn't mean it's a no. Just because somebody says something, if you have a passion, if you believe that there's a dream, that there's a vision, it's like, go to the mayor, email the producers, like do what you've got to do to it. You still may get told no.
And it could just be no, not right now, not no forever.
And that is part one of the episode with guest Jason Meland. Never give up on your dreams. Hope you enjoyed that and got a lot out of it. We actually decided after recording that this would be better in 2 parts. So we will be releasing that in just a few days on Saturday. Part 2 coming up with Jason. Never give up on your dreams. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.